started DATACAMP a few years ago under the leadership of Dr. Michael Chavez, who was our Vice President of Student Success at the time, and who, along with Brian Mullen, who was our Executive Director for PR and Marcom, really kind of revolutionized the way we did things at Montgomery in terms of increasing our capacity for knowing who our students are, what their needs are, and how we might best meet their needs, and in particular, how we might best communicate with them to help them along the way. As we began to develop our capacity for understanding and using data, we learned so much more about what we might do to support students, support our employees, support their knowledge base in terms of how they work with students, so that the changes that we began to see in terms of the response rates for communication with our students, in terms of improvement in student success and completion in courses, in terms of persistence from semester to semester, reduction in late payments, pretty much any measure that you can think of that could be affected by a deeper dive into the data surrounding that topic. We began to see improvement in those along those lines. The kind of added benefit to all of that was that we really got to know each other and our students better. And on campus, one of the things that meant was that our teams began to work cross-functionally much more than they ever had before. So leaders in instruction were working much more closely with leaders in academic support and in student services and enrollment management. And we all knew that we had the same goals even before that, but when you have the tools to actually dig into something that is of mutual interest, it makes that collaboration a lot easier. So I hope you have a wonderful experience today and that you learn something that is immediately useful to you in your department or your college. And look forward to sharing information across many different disciplines, many different functions and organizations, and just want to thank you for being here today. Welcome to Montgomery and to DATACAMP.
Thank you, Dr. Riley. As Dr. Riley mentioned, Dr. Chavez was the founder of DATACAMP. He's a former VP of Student Success for Lone Star College-Montgomery, and he kind of kickstarted our in-depth journey into data analytics, and he began DATACAMP 4 years ago. Here's a video from Dr. Chavez sharing why data is important to him and why he started DATACAMP. Thank you so much, Dr. Chavez. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our keynote speaker today. Mike Brookover is a founding member of Alitek and Chief Executive Officer for Alitek Solutions. He has over 25 years of experience in technology and organizational leadership. Mike assists clients with a wide variety of transformation projects that are focused on information strategy, information governance, and content management strategies for Fortune 100 clients. His background in program management and project methodology provides a strong framework that he uses to develop an approach to project delivery that Alitek uses to deliver on time and on budget projects. Mike works with clients to understand the true value in technology is using it as a tool to solve business problems. In addition to that, Mike has a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from A&M University, so he literally is a rocket scientist. Mike, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Tristan, for having me. Let me make sure I can share my screen. All right. So I appreciate the opportunity to share my experience around helping organizations with technology and data. I do want to start, since I'm here at Lone Star College talking about my academic credentials. I am actually a proud alumnus of some of the Lone Star programs. Back in the 80s, I took classes in calculus and in history at the North Harris County Community College system. So real briefly, Alitek, we help people think through digital transformations, how to use both structured, what we call structured and unstructured data to make better decisions. That's, think about it as all the files, both paper and electronic, and all the applications you have, and how to use that to make better decisions. So I'll start with a question, no need to answer since we're on a WebEx, but how long does it take to demolish a house? So when I have customers working in this space, they have to get legal permissions, permits, they have to shut off utilities, they have to remove asbestos, even take out items that are of value. So generally it takes about 3 weeks to prep and about 2 days to demolish a house. But the real question I had today was, how long does it take to demolish the wrong house? Well, it takes about the same amount of time. How long does it take to build an office building? Well, you have to get financing, you have to pick the right site, get bids from contractors, get permits from your local municipalities, and then actually do the construction work. So about 3 months of preparation and 6 to 12 months for construction. So here's the magic question. How long does it take to build on the wrong site? It actually takes the same amount of time. So with all the promise that we've been given of having information at our fingertips, why are we still struggling with making decisions? So these stats are a few years old, but I think they're still relevant. So more data has been created in the past 2 years than the entire previous human race history. Over 50 billion smart connected devices within the next 5 years. And this was in 2020, so it's probably become even a larger number. 1.7 megabytes of new information created every second for every human on the planet. As you can tell, what we've done is we've created a tsunami, or as we like to say, we now find ourselves living in a digital landfill. What we have in front of us is all that is, not all that is true. So there's an information resource that I like to follow. His name is Clay Shirky. He likes to say it's not information overload, it's filter failure. How do we understand, how do we turn this digital landfill into actionable information? This would be a screen from the Tom Cruise movie, drawing a blank on the movie now, a Minority Report, where they were able to use information to make predictions about the future. So when we're working with organizations, a 10% increase in data accessibility results in a $65 million net income increase for your typical Fortune 1000 company. So there is value in looking at improving how to work with your data. So we've been told for years data is the currency of the digital economy. Businesses or organizations that turn actionable insight and can predict the future will thrive. So there was a study several years ago that said that people who are leaders in this digital transformation are 26% more profitable than their competitors. In the case of your organization, it's probably not as much about profit, but think if you could improve your student outcomes by 26% or provide 26% more value to your organization. What we've seen is as the generations are moving through the technology band, the younger generations are expecting more and more connectivity. I like to say, what about generation next? You know, who's coming up the pipe? I'm actually in that orange generation X. I also have a very high standard of what I expect from my technology and become amazed when information is not at my fingertips, except for when I have to provide the information. So that is kind of a conundrum there. So this is the pace of information growth and technology. As you can see, as we've moved from the agricultural age into the information age, which is where people tell us we are today, we are seeing that the pace of innovation has grown. What I generally find with my customers, though, is that even though we're told we're in this magical space where we can do wonderful things, a lot of times we're still stuck a little bit further back. I joke that I've sat with customers and we've talked about the equivalent of going to the moon with technology, and they'll tell me that they're still trying to get the fax machine to work. So sometimes you have to start with walking or crawling sometimes before you can walk, before you can run. So this whole pace of innovation can really be broken down into what I call the information chain. How do we take the analog world we live in? How do we then convert that into a digital world so that we can make better decisions and take action? What we've done as we've moved from the analog to the digital is we've broken that chain. The information age has enabled us to do many things like take quick actions without approved decisions, to make important decisions with wrong information, to expect that information that we see is always correct. I think we've learned in the past 4 to 5 years to not trust everything we see on the internet. Maybe some of us knew that before, but I think most of us have learned that recently. So what we generally run across is that the analog to digital, people have gotten a good handle on how to do that, how to capture information on their phone. People know how to take actions, but it's that combining the information that came in through the digital channel to the correct action that is sometimes lost. So in my history, working with customers, I actually had a customer demolish the wrong house. They were building a wind farm and they were on the wrong plot of land and they tore down the wrong house. They did the right action, but with the wrong information. I also had a customer, a very large customer that many of you would know if we were talking, that built a store on the wrong piece of property. They owned the property, but when they were trying to make a decision on where to build the actual store, someone attached the wrong file and they ended up building a warehouse store on the wrong piece of land. So what if we choose to do nothing? There's a high cost to that. So one of my favorite quotes from Ernest Hemingway is, "How did you go bankrupt?" 2 ways, Mike said, gradually, then suddenly. So what happens is when we do nothing, there is a very high cost. So information problems that we see, do not self-correct. They do not become easier to solve later. And they are actually, usually they start out very small until they become huge. The analogy I've seen is thinking of an avalanche. For those of you who have gone skiing, you don't know that an avalanche is coming until it's already upon you. So in your world, the high cost of doing nothing could impact you on enrollment, could impact you on funding or on staff turnover. So it's important to take action, but we always want to make sure we're addressing the real problems that are facing us. And as much as I love technology, I like to say technology is not the answer. Using technology to solve information problems is like moving your digital landfill to a better zip code. So I pulled a picture here of a storage company in Hong Kong, some of the most expensive real estate in the world. Can you imagine storing your boxes in Hong Kong? Well, many of these tools that are wonderful tools that I have used quite a few places are not necessarily the cheapest way to solve a problem. Just putting your information into a box or an AWS or a OneDrive or a Salesforce can seem like an easy solution, but it's not always the cheapest solution in the long run. So being a native Houstonian and being a rocket scientist, one of my favorite movies was Apollo 13. And people love the quote, "Houston, we have a problem." But I'll tell you, my favorite quote is when the character played by Ed Harris, Gene Kranz, the flight director, said, "Let's work the problem, people. Let's not make things worse by guessing." So what we like to do when we're trying to solve information problems is you got to think of how do you look at them. So business problems are almost always information problems. So you need to define the business problem that needs to be solved. Is it that you need, as I heard earlier today, is the problem that maybe you're getting too many late payments, or is the problem that your students aren't able to sign up for classes quick enough? What problem needs to be solved? Don't think about technology yet. And then with understanding that problem, you want to make sure you get buy-in from the right people in your organization. And leadership can be people at the top, but it can also be very important people and stakeholders throughout the organization. You need to understand the information that's needed to solve the problem. That information may exist. You may need to find that information. It may be outside your organization or inside your organization, but you need to understand the information. You want to focus on the what, don't focus on the how when you start. Understand how the organization will use the information. So I'll tell you, this is probably one of the biggest downfalls that people run into when they try to solve information problems. They try to gather every piece of information they can, and there's a cost to doing that, but they don't actually need all that information at that time. So you only want to capture what you're going to use. Now, you may understand more, but when you're trying to solve a problem, you want to solve that problem. And this one actually sometimes needs to be done very early on. Define the value that solving that problem will bring. There actually has to be a value, not just because you can, because there's too many problems to solve. You want to solve the problems that are either the easiest and can be done quickly, or the ones that will provide the most value. Sometimes those are overlapping. So we like to sit down with our organizations that we work with and come up with a guiding set of principles to provide them a roadmap. So if you don't know where you are, having a map can help you figure out where you are and where you're going. So if you come up with a set of principles, and these are some common ones that we see: information is an asset. Official content should be stored in only one place. Information repositories need to have a defined purpose and one purpose only. Understand the life cycle of your information. I had a client help me with this one. Make the easy way the right way. And that information should be waiting for people. People should not wait for information. And we do this, we break it down by, is this something that will help the organization? Is this something that needs to be addressed by technology? Or is this something that will be influenced by people? So here, we talk about the information chain again. We want to make sure that we're using information as a multiplier. So if we think about the process first, and that process usually starts with an analog, human beings talking to each other, human beings working with applications and converting that into digital technology. And then how do we take that process and turn it into information that can be actionable? The information management chain. There's a book that came out many decades ago called Good to Great, and it was written by Jim Collins, and he talks about the information flywheel. And for those of you who are of a technology or a technical bent, a flywheel is a very large piece of equipment that can take a lot of energy to get moving, but once you get it moving, it can hold a lot of energy for you. Where we've seen the most value with companies dealing with information and data problems is companies that try to solve quick, small problems in front of them. And over time, by solving small problems, those problems can be compounded until the next thing you know, you have an organization that is focused on the right ideas of how to work with information and the right approach on how to address future problems. That sounds like what you've already done here by having DATACAMP for these many years. So data analytics is a powerful, powerful tool that can be used, holds a lot of promise. But what we've also seen, it's even more powerful if you have good information behind it. So if you think about that information chain, when you start with the analog and digital on the left-hand side, and you want to get to how to make better decisions and take action, inside that chain, there's an analytics and a human input. So you think about what's coming in as data, and that data can be turned into decisions and actions. Right now, most organizations are looking in the past. What did happen? And then maybe we'll make better decisions going forward. So where we see the next step is understanding by looking at that data, why did it happen? And if we understand why, then maybe we can do a better job of capturing data and then making better decisions and taking better actions. The future holds predictive, what will happen. When we can start getting a better understanding of what will happen, that is where we can start taking leaps and bounds moving forward. And then the true hope is that we can get to prescriptive. What should I do? If you have the right information, it can help you make better decisions, or even better, some decisions can be made for you, and you can then just review them. With all of these, what's very important is to make sure you have a feedback loop. So you always take a look at the actions that were done and understand how you can better capture that information so you can make better decisions going forward. So here's a brief example of how we talk about information and data with our organization. So somewhere like Lone Star College, you may want to come up with a new course. And so you would be doing research, you'd have some planning, you would create the course, and you'd find a way to share it. Right now, what happens in most organizations is people have to sit around and wait for information to be shared with them. Documents are stored in siloed file shares. Department processes may not be connected. It's very hard to understand what the status is of any process unless you pick the phone up or you send an email. Where we like to move people to is that documents are available on demand. Processes are defined well and connected. Documents are tied to processes, and status can then be made available from dashboards instead of having to ask people. And this is the future of how information management can drive your organization. So in summary, the key takeaways that I like to point out is business problems are really information problems. Technology is a tool, but it's not the answer. Information problems have never self-corrected, and solve problems that are valuable to your organization. Guiding principles always provide a good roadmap. Decide how information should be handled early on, and always think about the person, not the technology. How will this impact your students? How will this impact your fellow professors? How will it impact the organization? Information management is a multiplier, so improving that will make your organization so much better. But addressing process is just as important as addressing data and information. The impact will grow slowly at first, but then it will grow quickly. Data analytics require good information. So if you focus on the information chain and you're capturing good information, you can use that data to get guide your decisions, but not make them. We really also want to make sure that there is still a human element. So that's all I had for today. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, I'm sure my contact information will be available. Even if you just want to chat, be happy to talk and just hear what you're doing. And any way I can help, be happy to. Thank you.
Mike, thank you so much for that great information. I already have 3 takeaways. Is the problem worth solving? Make the easy way the right way, and solve small problems first. So I am definitely looking at those 3 things as I'm looking at all kinds of data and processes that we're changing. And we really appreciate you being here. I do have Mike's contact information if anyone's interested, and we will also be posting this recording to the DATACAMP website. So if you want to go back and look at it again, it'll be available there. Additionally, I'm putting the link to the DATACAMP website in the chat. Our next session does start in about 10 minutes, so take a break, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready for going to your next session. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you have questions, I will be here in this room for a little bit longer to help anyone who has questions. Thanks again. Very good that they're leaving, because it also tells us that they were paying attention, right? If they're sitting here